Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify. Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify. Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify. Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify. Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify. Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify. Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify. Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
Morning councillors, welcome to the meeting today for the 20th of October. As you're aware, we've got the Mayor and Deputy Mayor away today. So as per your meeting policy, I need to throw it to you councillors to essentially elect a councillor to preside over today's meeting. So I'll throw it open to the floor.
Mark, could I move that Councillor Chris Trevor be chairman of this meeting today?
Thanks, Councillor Rick. I accept that nomination.
Yeah, I can second that.
Carried. We'll throw it over to Councillor Trevor.
Thank you, Acting CEO. Good morning, councillors. Good morning, members of the public. Good morning, staff. The first item for the agenda this morning is a deputation from the Reef Guardian Council program 2020-2024, and we have present today Rebecca Allen from Grumpa and Rebecca Hendry from the GRC, Research Conservation Specialist. Good morning to you both, and I'll hand over to Rebecca Allen.
Good morning, councillors. Thank you very much for your time today. My name is Rebecca Allen. I am the Assistant Director for the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority based in Yeppoon, managing the Southern Great Barrier Reef area for engagement and the Reef Guardian Council's program in its entirety for the Great Barrier Reef. And that's what I'm here today to present on, is the Reef Guardian Council program. Before I start though, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on whose land we meet today. The Port Curtis Coral Coast peoples, the Baili, Gurang and Terabillung Bunda peoples, their elders past, present and emerging. The Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority, I'll just do a bit of background for those of us that are new to the program. We're a federal government agency. Our head office is based in Townsville, along with our Reef HQ National Aquarium. We also have regional offices in Cairns, Mackay, Yeppoon, Gladstone, and we have offices in Brisbane and Canberra to be close with our state and federal government colleagues. It sounds like a lot of people, but to manage a very, very complex space and a very large space, it's actually not. And that's where our partnerships come into play. And that's what I'm here to talk to you today about, is our Reef Guardian Council partnership. It's a stewardship program, and from the very outset, I would like to really emphasise that. It is a voluntary stewardship program. This is not about adding deliverables to your already busy dance card. We understand that council has a lot to manage. This is a voluntary program and it's about value adding. Before we get into that though, I we'll just refresh our memory about the Great Barrier Reef. So it's part of our national identity. Traditional owners have had spiritual and cultural connections with the GBR for tens of thousands of years. It is one of the 7 wonders of the world, and it was listed as a World Heritage Area in 1981. It contributes $6.4 billion to the national economy per year and supports around 70,000 jobs. We also have millions of recreational visitors and around 2 million tourists coming to see the Great Barrier Reef from around the globe, in a non-COVID year, of course. It has been inspiring generations around the world for years, through filmmakers like Jacques Cousteau, David Attenborough, and of course, the very famous Finding Nemo. But I'd also like to emphasise that it really is big. It's around the same size as Italy or Japan. So for footy fans, that's around 70 million football fields. And it's a very complex space. Of course, it's not made up entirely of reef systems. We have amazing seagrass, mangroves, thousands of species that depend on this area. So it's very complex. And I'm sure you're wondering how the reef is faring. Every 5 years we publish the Outlook Report. It's a legislative requirement for the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority to do so. It looks at the status of the reef as it is now and provides an outlook. Unfortunately, the 2019 report found that the long-term outlook, so that's not the status, that's the 5 to 25-year outlook for the reef, is considered very poor. Unsurprisingly, the greatest threats are still from climate change, coastal development, land-based runoff, and human use of the reef. So it's critical now more than ever that we focus our attention to these greatest threats and accelerating actions to support the reef's resilience. You'll notice that of the 4 key threats to the reef, local governments play a vital role in managing those threats. The 4th main threat, direct use of the reef, is also within Council's remit as a really valuable and excellent conduit to the catchment community, to our recreational users of the reef. You will have noted media coverage of the reef over the past summer, and unfortunately we did experience the 3rd mass bleaching event in 5 years. So now more than ever, it's critical that we work with our partners to manage the reef. And that's where our voluntary stewardship programs come in. Most of the challenges that the Great Barrier Reef faces is actually outside of the legislative scope of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority. So we need the support of the community and land managers. Recognising this, fostering a high level of stewardship of the Great Barrier Reef across the community has become central to the way the authority does business. Engaging and working with industry and the community not only empowers people to care for the reef, but it influences them to make decisions in their everyday actions. We do have a whole range of stewardship initiatives, our oldest being the Eye on the Reef Citizen Science program. But we also have our Master Reef Guides, our high standard tourism operators, our Reef Guardian schools, and our Reef Guardian fishers, which are commercial fishers. And of course, we have the Reef Guardian Council program, which is a critical part of our stewardship partnerships. As land managers and conduits to and leaders in our coastal communities, you play an incredibly important role for the reef. We'll just take a step back in time for a moment. Gladstone Regional Council joined the program officially in around 2010, and we've valued your support and involvement in the program ever since. As of this year, we will now have 19 Reef Guardian Councils part of the program. So we're covering over 300,000 square kilometres of the Great Barrier Reef catchment. So it's almost equivalent to, but not quite, the size of the reef itself. This year we've had Yarrabah Aboriginal Shire Council join the program, so that will take it to 2 Aboriginal Shire Councils and, as I said, 19 Reef Guardian Councils. A lot has changed since the program came into play in around 2005, 2007. So over the past sort of 18 months, the authorities sat down with the councils, how to look at the program, and how to think about the program going forward. We've come up with a raft of changes with the councils to improve the program, and I'll go through those here with you today. But I do want to stress it is a voluntary stewardship program. There are no financial requirements, and it's not about creating an onerous workload for councils. It is a vehicle to recognise the important role that local government plays in helping manage the key threats to the reef, and to promote the positive actions that you are undertaking through council to improve the health of the reef. At the beginning of each council term, we ask the local governments to enter into a memorandum of understanding with us to be part of the program. And that's one of the first things that we've improved. We recognise that the MOU was overly prescriptive for a voluntary stewardship program. So we've gone back to basics. It's been simplified, and it doesn't create any enforceable obligations except around the use of the branding. And although we've revised the program, the intent remains the same. It's a collaborative stewardship program that provides a network to increase collaboration and learnings, a collective voice for funding, a link to strategically important partners. For example, the steering committee last year was held in Cairns. We invited along the Great Barrier Reef Foundation, and they heard firsthand from the council executives that were there that councils are well placed to help them spend the almost $500 million they have to address reef threats. We also had LGAQ as part of the committee attend, the Office of Great Barrier Reef and the Queensland Water Directorate. So it is that conduit to those key partners. The program is also about recognising the work that you're undertaking and raising awareness of the relationship between those actions and the Great Barrier Reef. For example, most people in our catchment community wouldn't get the tangible link between managing landfills effectively for their methane gas emissions to be an actual climate change action that you're undertaking, particularly here in Gladstone Regional Council with your Banarabi gas reuse for energy program. So the program itself, the structure is there's an executive committee, which is a forum for the executive representatives of the Reef Guardian Council and the authority to get together at least once a year. Usually we hold this in conjunction with the LGAQ conference, but due to COVID concerns this year, we decoupled it and we're having a smaller virtual meeting while we have the COVID restrictions in place. Usually we coordinate these meetings and pay for any additional travel or accommodation costs for council representatives to attend. Each Reef Guardian Council nominates up to 2 representatives, usually the Mayor and the Councillor or CEO, to sit on the Executive Committee. Up until now it's been called a steering committee and has been chaired by one of the authority's general managers. That's another one of the changes that we've made in the terms of reference. For quite a few years now, the councils have been asking that the Executive Committee be chaired by council representatives. So the terms of reference has it written in that the Executive Committee now will have co-chairs, and they will be from the Reef Guardian Councils themselves. So the co-chairs will present the unified voice of the Reef Guardian Councils to promote the program and to lobby other levels of government for assistance to build your capacity to help the reef. We've also committed to seeking a chair directly at the RAC, the Reef Advisory Committee table. Currently, local governments are represented by the Local Government Association of Queensland through Doreen Earhart, and Doreen herself and LGAQ have been supportive of us trying to get a Reef Guardian Council representation directly on the RAC. Haven't gotten this through as yet, but please leave it with me. Each council also puts forward technical officers from relevant work areas such as environmental or sustainability officers, such as Rebecca, for our working group. So these meetings usually take place in regional clusters in our Grabumpa regional offices and then connect virtually with the other regions across the GBR. We had a meeting in July, getting the working group together virtually, including a session on celebrating the actions undertaken by councils and identifying some potential actions that councils could consider for their action plan this year, looking for those opportunities for councils to collaborate and use the power of the collective to leverage support and to share learnings. The working group really is a great forum for technical and operational staff from the councils to network, build capacity by sharing best practices, and collaborate to find solutions. Our role as the authority within the program is to coordinate the overall management of the program, to advocate for greater support for Reef Guardian councils to achieve positive outcomes for the reef, to provide you with relevant reef-related information and resources, to promote the positive actions being taken by Reef Guardian councils, to attend at least one council event per council per year, and to support Reef Guardian councils to obtain external funding to undertake further actions. Two of the key focuses for the 2020 to 24 term is communicating the Reef Guardian Council program and the actions that you undertake, and also professional development and networking opportunities for Reef Guardian Council officers, but I'll address those separately. As members of the Reef Guardian Council program, we'd like councils to undertake actions to help the reef, which you are already doing through your land management, your planning, your development assessment, and I'll talk about action planning separately in my next slide. We'd like you to work collaboratively with each other, with us, and also with your Reef Guardian Council schools to improve outcomes and harness the power of the collective. Ideally, we'd like to see the program integrated across business units within councils, in your corporate culture and decision making. And that's where we can help as well by providing short articles for your internal council newsletters and the like to spread the message within council staff. We'd like councils to contribute to the executive committee and working group with nominated staff members attending these meetings, and to provide us with case studies and information that we can help publicise the positive actions that you're taking to help the reef. As part of the program, we ask the councils to commit to taking action to help the reef. We have this action plan template, which councils are free to use. We have also recognised that many councils already have their own environmental or sustainability plans. We're not about adding extra administrative load. If you already have that in place, you do not need to use our template. It's there as an offer. You don't have to use it. We're happy to use any existing plans, and we can just provide a graphic that denotes it's a Reef Guardian Council action, so you don't have to duplicate admin. The actions, though, are really the crux of the program. It outlines the actions that you're taking as a Reef Guardian Council to help the reef. The plans can be for 1, 2, or the entire 4-year term, whatever suits council. We have had 2 finalised action plans come in from council so far. One was for a 1-year term because that suited their operational planning, and one is actually for the entire 4-year term. So we're happy with either, as long as it suits you. A list of potential actions have been provided in the terms of reference for the program, but again, in recognition of council knowing council's business best, that's not the definitive list. If you have other actions that you think will help the reef, you're quite fine to put those forward in your action plan. We have asked councils with greater than 50,000 residents, which includes Gladstone, to commit to at least 3 actions per reef threat and 3 for heritage and social values. I just wanted to point out that there is already a lot the Gladstone Regional Council are doing to help the reef. And just as a couple of examples, through your work with Fitzroy Basin Association, Livingston Shire and Rockhampton Regional Council, in the Drain Buddies program that you've implemented, by your generous support for the Reef Guardian School's Future Leader Eco Challenge each year, which we're very lucky to have on Curtis Island and have council staff attend, and the Reef Guardian schools in this region feel incredibly privileged by an actual day out on an island to talk about the reef. Your Biodiversity Conservation Strategic Plan for 2016 to 25, which includes a range of activities to protect, manage and rehabilitate habitats which are obviously linked to the reef, your coastal hazard adaptation strategy and your shoreline erosion management plans, working with Tangaroa Blue and Reef Clean on your waste bin project, the predator control that you do along the coastline, working with Water by Design on sensitive waterway design, the Canoe Point Reserve Flora and Fauna work, sharing that important information about coastal habitats and their link to the reef, and of course, one of my personal favourites to talk about for Gladstone Regional Council, the Banarabi gas recapture project here. You're definitely ahead of the game there with many of the regional councils looking to follow in your footsteps to implement something like you have at Banarabi already. In terms of direct use of the reef, some of our reef guardian councils are starting to establish voluntary codes of conduct for recreational fishers. You might have noticed that with Rockhampton Regional Council, and they're using that as part of their marketing associated with fishing the Fitzroy. So that's an opportunity that council might look to implement. The other way to help us address the key threat of direct use is by simply sharing our messaging through your channels, through your engagement officers, through your social media and the like. So the actions that we all take now, they will matter. This is a mission that everyone everywhere can be part of, and we particularly acknowledge the critical role that council plays in taking action, educating our catchment community and empowering others to help the reef. As I said, a key focus of the Reef Guardian Council program for this term is communication. It's about communicating the Reef Guardian Council's successes to draw those tangible relationships between the actions that you're undertaking as land managers to the reef. The key aspects of this will be developing a communication plan in conjunction with the councils, and I'll be sending out a draft plan very, very soon in anticipation of discussing it at the upcoming executive committee meeting. We'd like to help by developing communication templates such as media releases, the newsletter articles and the like. We did draft media releases on the signing of the memorandums of understanding and have worked with each of the communications officers for each council to get those out. And we've had positive feedback from the comms officers at council saying that was helpful to have that provided as a basis to get the positive messaging that you've rejoined the program. And their media release here was quite successful with Win News picking it up, as well as the print media as well. We're keen to provide you with reef-related information and resources to promote your actions across our channels and to work directly with your communications officers to promote the great work that you're doing. Another key aspect of the program is the professional development and networking. This is the fun part of the program. So last year in October, we paid for 10 Reef Guardian Council officers to attend the National Stormwater Conference in Cairns. And we'd like to continue that as part of the program. We've written it into the terms of reference. We had very, very positive feedback from the council officers about that opportunity, not only to attend a reef-related conference, but to network as well and share learnings within the council officers. COVID-19 has put a slight spanner in the works for this in terms of face-to-face, but we're working on it. And again, a draft professional development and networking plan should be coming out very soon in lead up to the executive committee meeting where it will be discussed. And we do have resources such as our drain stencils that we'd like to share with councils to help spread that message around the link between the catchment and the reef. It's a fun way of reminding school students and the communities that what we do here on the land will eventually end up on the reef. So where to from here for the program? Action plans would ideally be in this month so that we could collate and have some idea of the collective impact of the council actions across the entire GBR. The executive committee meeting date claimer has gone out for the 17th of November as a short virtual meeting. and reporting and promotion. So across our social media, and the like. We have also developed a highlights report. You may remember annually a highlights report was done for all of the Reef Guardian councils. We've moved slightly away from that and recognise that councils may want to publish that when suits them, and also not be so limited on the number of activities that you'd like to promote. So we've developed a highlights report as a standalone document that we will give to council, that your comms officers will be able to populate just for Gladstone Regional Council to promote. So now more than ever, we recognise that establishing effective and meaningful partnerships is critical to managing the Great Barrier Reef, and that you councils are taking a wide range of both regulated and voluntary actions to help address reef threats. We'd like to better promote those actions to the wider community, to support you to undertake those actions and help with the collective knowledge and capacity of the 19 Reef Guardian councils to continuously improve the program. I thank you very much for your time today and the opportunity to come down and do the deputation face to face. It's great, and I welcome any questions on the program.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Branthwaite.
Well, thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, Rebecca. That was a really good presentation, and it's interesting to see that. Obviously, we just sort of know as residents that council is doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and obviously with the stormwater side of things, and obviously with the dump. You made reference to the Rockhampton Regional Council with their efforts with their fishing side of things. What were you meaning by that?
So they have a voluntary code of practice that they have, and fishers in the Fitzroy can sign up to that voluntary code of practice. It goes above and beyond the DAF fisheries regulations about bag and size limits, and it's also about the behaviour as a fisher of the Fitzroy itself. It's been part of the Fitzroy Catchment Management Group work around the net-free zones and some of the benefits that can be felt by the recreational fishers, but it's also part of their Fishing the Fitzroy marketing campaign. So there are other councils. Mackay's following hot on Rockhampton's footsteps.
Yeah, they've joined up together. They've been working with that together.
Yes, so they work with Bill Sornock at Infofish quite closely, and that's looking at the monitoring data as well, but it's about the voluntary code.
I think each year the likes of all that system or that ethos or thinking right through the whole fishing network is actually improving and evolving. Like I know within our region here, we've been working with for the likes of the Boyne-Tannum hookup, which is one of those founding members that's working with Bill on that live and test and measure and side of category. It's been going on for many a year. And I think with the likes of the net-free zones, it's sort of focused in on that and being able to leverage off that. And with Mackay joining forces, it's like we're not obviously a net-free zone down here, but it's interesting. Yeah, thank you.
No worries. I think that's a great point. You do have the Boyne-Tannum hookup here in Gladstone region. It's Australia's largest fishing festival, and we really have valued the Boyne-Tannum hookup support of us attending each year, being able to give out our zoning information and the like, but also they've done a great job in sharing our messaging through their social media and the like, so that's really indicative of the fishing value in the Gladstone region, but also that ethos, as you said.
There's a real generation there now, though, that wants to kiss them and throw them back. So it's want to catch them another day, and the likes of being up at the Australia's largest or most populated impoundment of barramundi in Australia is the Lake of Wonga. It's there's a real test and tag thing there, and the journeys that these fish go on are quite incredible.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Councillor Muscat.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor. Thanks, Rebecca, for your presentation. I wanted to ask you two questions, and I guess one was building on to what Councillor Branthwaite just touched on. I wanted to see if you could give us a bit of a better understanding of the impact of recreational fishing. So I guess there's people putting measures in place and things like that. But I think if we are able to understand the impact of recreational fishing in the first place, that'll be great. And the other question is, I was at the opening of a facility last week, Coastal Marine Ecosystems Research Centre, so by the CQ University. So it was a great event and looks like a great facility. One of the speakers that opened the ceremony, the launch ceremony, he explained that he had been speaking to people that know, and then he also said that the reef has never been in a better shape and is really healthy. So I guess drawing onto the comments as the deterioration of the reef since 2014 that you mentioned earlier, and the third mass bleaching event that we just had, could you maybe explain to us why someone will say something like that?
And perhaps it's based on their experience of where they went. So we have to remember how big the reef is. So you would have actually just seen there was a media release about up to 50% of small to medium corals lost over the GBR. It depends on the study that you're referencing and also where you've been. So it is highly variable, and we like to steer away from those mass statements of percentage because it is highly variable. In the 16-17 events, as you know, the far north and northern were actually hit quite badly, as well as central. Unfortunately, in this last event, we didn't escape. So the southern region did experience bleaching in this past summer. So we reference the AIMS, Australian Institute of Marine Science long-term monitoring program. It's been undertaken for 35 years now, maybe 36 this year. Unfortunately, their last annual report showed that there were declines in coral cover across all three regions of the Great Barrier Reef. That's the first time in the history of that program that they've all shown that decrease. So people shouldn't lose hope. It isn't an absolute statement. It is incredibly variable because it is incredibly diverse. We have very shallow water coral reefs, which is part of the last study that's just been referenced, shallow water, and then we have incredibly deep, up to 80 metres deep in some areas, and it's across an area the size of around Italy. So we need to steer away from those blanket statements. What we do need to understand is it is a resilient system if we can help take the pressure off it. So now more than ever, we need to help the reef with its resilience. So we need to tackle those key threats so that it has the ability to bounce back from things like bleaching, the increase in cyclones, and the increase from flooding, which of course takes nutrients to the reef. And recreational fishing, yes. The Great Barrier Reef has zoning, as you know. Unfortunately, we're still not seeing complete compliance with our zoning, which is one of the key ways that people can take the pressure off the reef. So recreational fishing impacts are not only about the compliance issue, which we do still unfortunately have, but it's also about the use of the reef. It's the anchoring and those sorts of responsible reef practices as well. We need to remember that approximately 67% of the reef is still open to fishing. So while we have green zones, there is a large majority of the reef that is open to some form of fishing. So those green zones are incredibly important. They're basically our sanctuaries, and study after study has shown that they're the areas that have more fish, bigger fish, and the fish flow over to our blue zones and the other areas that are available for fishing. One of the great studies was actually just based in the Keppels, just up the road, and it showed exactly that. So now more than ever, complying with our zoning and staying out of the green zones when fishing is critically important.
So just to give us an indication, how many episodes of breaching of those rules do you see?
It depends over what period you'd be asking. Unfortunately, in the last annual report, we've seen an increase. And I'm trying to remember what the statistic was. I think it was an 11% increase in non-compliance, so fishing in the green zone and the like, compared to last year, which is, I think, 11% increase in non-compliance. So fishing in the green zone and the like, compared to last year, which is, I think, 11% increase in non-compliance, so fishing in the green zone and the like, compared to last year, which is, I think, 11% increase in non-compliance, so fishing in the green zone and the like, compared to last year, which is, I think, 11% increase in non-compliance, so fishing in the green zone and the like, compared to last year, which is, I think, 11% increase in non-compliance, so fishing in the green zone and the like, compared to last year, which is, I think, 11% increase in non-compliance, so fishing in the green zone and the like, compared to last year, which is, I think, 11% increase in non-compliance, so fishing in the green zone and the like, compared to last year, which is, I think, 11% increase in non-compliance, so fishing in the green zone and the like, compared to last year, which is, I think, 11% increase in non-compliance, so fishing in the green zone and the like, the wrong trajectory that we'd be seeking. Here in the southern GBR, it's an interesting area. So you've got the Capricorn bunkers on your doorstep virtually. Most of the GBR, we say the non-compliance is around 50 kilometres of a person's home address, which is quite startling when we talk to recreational users. Everyone always thinks it's somebody else from some other region that's coming in and fishing in the green zone. Generally, it's not. Usually, it's locals. Here in the southern GBR, we do have a bit of an anomaly because it is the southern entrance to the Great Barrier Reef. So the Capricorn bunkers also, non-compliances include areas from Brisbane, northern New South Wales and the Sunshine Coast. So I don't know the actual numbers that we've seen this year, but I know it's around that 11% increase from last year.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
I'll move, Mr Chair, that the deputation from the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority be received and we congratulate them.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Hanson. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you so much, Rebecca and Rebecca. That was wonderful to hear.
Thank you.
Councillors, the next item on the agenda is apologies, and I call for apologies.
Oh, I think we'll be calling for them.
We have two.
Three.
Three apologies. Mayor Matt Burnett, Deputy Mayor Khan Goodluck and Councillor Desley O'Grady, all of whom are at the LGAQ conference.
CEO not here either.
And also our CEO, Lisa Dowling. Does someone who want to move that those apologies be received? Councillor Muscat moved, seconded Councillor Cameron. All in favour? Carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda is messages of condolences. Councillors, do we have any messages of condolences? We have no messages of condolences. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, and that is prior notification of MPIs and conflicts of interest. Councillors, do we have any prior notifications of MPIs and conflicts of interest? No one except me. Councillors, as you all know, there was new legislative amendments made on the 12th of October this year in relation to prior notifications of MPIs and conflicts of interest. Subsequent to that legislation being passed on the 12th of October, we had a information session on the 13th of October. I'm just trying to find my email that I've sent to the CEO as a result of some conflicts I had during that meeting. Councillors, at the recent councillor information session held on the 13th of October, I advised that I may have a conflict with respect to item 2.1.6, Memorial Park Master Plan, because of a substantial donation I made to PCYC some years ago, and I left the room. From a reading of the material provided by our legal officers, it appears that donations to people/clubs, etc. by a sitting councillor are no longer a conflict of interest, so I do not intend to advise the CEO of a conflict of interest on that matter any further, and that commentary is just for your information, given that I vacated the room on the 13th of October prior to having been advised by legal officers in relation to our most recent duties so far as conflicts of interest are concerned. However, with respect to item 2.1.7, Agnes Water car parking, where I again declared a conflict of interest and left the room, I do believe that I should advise the CEO in writing of a prescribed conflict of interest, and I accordingly did so. The subject land directly borders land of a body corporate, Beach Houses estate, of which my wife is a member. I hold power of attorney over Colleen's financial affairs and vice versa. My wife, Colleen Joan Trevor, is the registered owner of Lot 31 in the body corporate, and I am an equitable owner of such land and improvements. It is our principal place of residence. Whilst I do not believe we stand to gain a benefit or suffer a loss that is no greater than the benefit or loss that a significant proportion of persons in the local government area stand to gain or lose, I, as a councillor, am privy to information which compromises my position in any voting of this matter, because as owner of a lot in the body corporate, we may, not necessarily will, become part of court action against the council. For that reason, I will leave the room when this matter eventually comes before council.
Councillor Trevor, sorry, just for the record, I believe that it is a declarable conflict of interest rather than prescribed, but you can still make that election to leave the room for any of those matters.
Thank you, Tanya. On reading the legislation, of course, it's new legislation. It may well be declarable, it may be prescribed, but I have taken my own advice, which is not always necessarily the right advice, and declared a prescribed conflict of interest. But I do take your point. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. We'll move.
Sorry. One more interruption. Any councillors who raised a conflict of interest at the councillor information session last week must declare that conflict of interest and have it determined by councillors here today.
I'm sorry, councillors, and that's the reason why I have declared the conflicts, one conflict today, and given you reasons why I do not believe the other conflict that I thought I had at the time and left the room is no longer a conflict of interest. I cannot recall whether there are other councillors who left the room at the time. Councillor Glenn, I think you may have left the room with the PCYC, I can't recall.
Yes, Councillor Churchill and Councillor Muscat. And we don't have to relate the conflict back to the councillor information session agenda item. It's just merely declaring the matter that you have the conflict in, because this is looking ahead to future decision making or participated in decisions.
Councillors, this is all new ground for us, so just take your time. We'll get through this. This is the very first time that this matter or matters have been raised since the new legislation has been passed on the 12th of October, so don't hesitate to take some time, and we'll do the best that we can in what is otherwise difficult circumstances at this time.
Councillors, to be clear, once you raise and have the resolution with respect to the interest, that remains through until the decision's made on that matter. So if it does, the same issue does come up for a consideration of council on several occasions, that once you've declared that interest and you've had a decision on that, that action and resolution remains for that whole period.
not going to rush either of you, so just when you're ready, just let me know.
Councillor Trevor, I have not declared a conflict at the last councillor information session, so I just confirmed. So the last time would have been at the last council meeting, which was previous to 12th of October. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Muscat.
Yeah, thanks for that, Councillor Chris. As Chair, under the new legislation and understanding the interpretation of the new legislation, I declare that I have a declarable conflict of interest in my role as outlined in my register of interest that we all have submitted as a member and on the executive of the Gladstone Region Police Citizens Youth Club. In light of saying that, I articulate that in that register of interest I indicate such that I am a member, but understanding the requirements under section 150 EO of the Local Government Association is that the councillor undertakes an engagement in the capacity of a councillor for a community group, a sporting club or similar organisation, however is not appointed as an executive officer of the organisation is an exception, but I've indicated that I am chair of the PCYC and have been for 10 years. The further part of that legislation on further review of the legislation of section 150 EF in brackets 2 of the Local Government Act provides that the provisions on conflicts of interest Chapter 5B do not apply in relation to a councillor's conflict of interest in a matter relating to a corporation or association that arises solely because of a nomination. And I articulate this particular point that I am, by a resolution of council, appointed as this council's representative to the Gladstone Region PCYC Advisory Committee. But further to that, upon the appointment of myself as the councillor by the local government to be a member of the board of that corporation or association, and that resolution was again in 2016 and again in 2020 to the Gladstone PCYC Branch Advisory Committee. I put on public record that I have been the chairman for 10 years and I'm also a Diamond Life member of the PCYC. So in declaring that declarable conflict of interest, I will remove myself from the chambers on any discussions that relate to the Gladstone Region PCYC.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Our legal officer?
My only advice, just to make sure that Councillor Churchill understands that he can leave that to the floor to make that decision as to whether that conflict he can stay in the room with regards to those matters, or he can make that election, but he does not have to make the election to leave the room.
I thank you for that advice. I think in light of the circumstances that I've already previously established a precedence by removing myself from those discussions, unless of course that there is advice or further advice that perhaps comes from the Integrity Commissioner as this legislation is put to the test. But I'm declaring today in that declarable conflict of interest that I will continue to remove myself from any matters that relate to the PCYC because I am the chairman and a Diamond Life member.
And is it the case, Councillor Churchill, that as chair you are an executive member in accordance with the Constitution?
It is, yes, absolutely.
Then I understand your position.
Thank you.
Mr Chair, I've just
Councillor Hanson.
remember that I am part of the advisory committee of the PCYC, which hasn't met for some time. I don't know whether that's still operational, Councillor Churchill. I don't know whether I have to declare anything regarding that,
I don't believe you do at this stage.
just in case.
If it arises in the future, simply being a member of an association is not a declarable conflict of interest, and the legislation is quite clear on that. It's when you go beyond, as in Councillor Churchill's position, he said that actually being a chairman goes beyond being a councillor appointed board member. But at the end of the day, the question comes down to whether or not you feel that because of your personal interests, it would cause you to make a decision contrary to what's in the public interest. So that is the test that you always come back to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Are there any other prior notifications of conflicts of interest? There being no further notifications, I'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's the mayoral statement of current issues. The mayor not being present, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's the confirmation of the minutes, which are the general meeting minutes for 6 October 2020. Do we have a mover for that? Moved Councillor Muscat, seconded Councillor Cameron. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda, councillors, are officers' reports, and the first report is item G/3.1, expressions of interest for smart meters, and I'll call on the General Manager of Operations.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor, and good morning, councillors. This paper asks for a resolution to go for expressions of interest for the supply of smart water meters prior to going to tender. The reason for the expression of interest is to test the market and see what technologies and methods are available out there before going to tender. It allows vendors to show us what they have to offer. The EOI is at no cost to council other than resource time, and we intend to release that by the end of October. I'll take the paper as read and invite any questions.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Glenn?
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Chair. Yeah, great report, John, to you and to your team as well. One simple question is that with the constant change of technology, and we're going out into the market, and I applaud your intent with the EOIs. I think that's a good strategy, which has been proven in other areas. Question I wanted to ask is, because technology is changing so much and so often, how do you deal with an EOI that comes forward that would be articulating that they're developing a new technology that's perhaps not even in the marketplace, but it's going to be groundbreaking and it'll be innovative, etc., etc.? I'm sure you'll understand where I'm coming from. So how do you deal with that is someone that's developing by research or perhaps in the marketplace new technology that's not even in the marketplace yet, but will be?
It's an expression of interest, and in that case, it would also allow our engineering staff and other relevant subject matter experts to actually engage with those vendors and understand what they have to offer, and in that case, see if it's actually feasible for what we're chasing. Do you have anything to add?
All right, we'll wait and see what happens, eh?
Thank you.
Councillor Hanson?
I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation. It's a very good way of doing things. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Moved Councillor Hanson, seconded Councillor Branthwaite. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. We'll move on to the next item for the agenda, which is item G/3.2, request for negotiated decision to development application 50/2019 for a material change of use of premises for a tourist park, 14 sites and lodge with 12 guests. And over to the General Manager of Customer Experience.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor. Morning, councillors. This is a request for negotiated decision for 135 Newtons Road. It's with you again. You'll recall that you approved this development application in July. Subsequent to approval, the applicants appealed 2 of the 30 conditions that were applied. One on the basis that a camp kitchen and toilet block had been removed by accident from the site plan, which was assessed. And the other to modify the conditions around gendered toilets, for want of a better term, per our local law for operation of camping grounds. Officers are recommending approval in this case.
Questions, councillors?
I have no questions, but I'm very keen, as I'm sure other elected members around the table will be, to support this very wise and strategic decision. So I'll move the recommendation if you're prepared to accept it.
Moved Councillor Hanson.
Second here.
Moved Councillor Hanson, seconded Councillor Branthwaite. All in favour?
Apologies there, Mr Chair, it was Councillor Churchill, not
Oh,
Councillor Hanson
yes,
who moved.
Sorry, I was just,
I accept that as a compliment.
just too good looking.
I just hope you weren't leading anybody.
Moved Councillor Churchill, seconded Councillor Braithwaite. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, for picking that up, Councillor Hanson. I'm getting old. Right, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, and that is item G/3.3 PSA 13/21, supply and delivery of sodium hypochlorite, and the report by the General Manager of Operations.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor. This paper calls for the award of a tender for sodium hypochlorite to Coogee Chemicals. We went to the market with this tender. There's only one respondent, which was Coogee Chemicals. Sodium hypochlorite is a disinfection chemical that we use in the wastewater treatment process and is vital to the success of the process and our operation.
Any questions, councillors?
Did I read it properly? But I didn't see that they were the only tender, and I'm looking for a tender evaluation. I couldn't find one. But we don't need it, obviously, but the report didn't say that, I don't think. But they were the only tender. You did it? Yeah. Okay, missed it, thank you.
So I understood it, the report was the only tenderer.
That's correct, yes.
That's correct, yes. Thank you for confirming that. Do we have a mover for
Happy
that?
to move,
Moved, Councillor Hanson. We have a question from Councillor Muscat.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor. Thanks. John, just wanted to check with you if have we had more tenders in the past, or is there any reason why we just received one? Or
Typically, there is only one supplier in this area. The other supplier stopped supplying that chemical several years ago.
okay, thank you.
Moved Councillor Hanson, seconded Councillor Cameron. All in favour? Carried unanimously. We move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item G/3.4569 Coast Road Baffle Creek leases, and I'll hand over to the General Manager of Strategic Asset Performance.
Following discussions with the local community groups, Council has resurveyed the property and has created 5 lease areas. We now need to enter into lease agreements with a number of community organisations, and under the regulations we're seeking Council's endorsement to go directly to the current leaseholders and offer them the opportunities to take up new leases in the new surveyed areas.
Questions, councillors? Councillor Hanson.
This is a good result. This has caused some concern for some time down in the Baffle area, and it gives those organisations the autonomy now it will give those organisations, all of them, the autonomy to get funding. So a very good move, and wholeheartedly support it.
A question? Councillor Muscat?
Thank you. Thanks, Anna. I just wanted to ask you a few questions. Yeah, I definitely see benefit to doing this, But I wanted to ask you a few questions in relation to a couple of the points here. So when we talked about the a club that has been advised by the Office of Fair Trading that they have not been operating within the guidelines. So is there any conditions in the list that I guess ask the club to let us know, or is there any controls that we have in place throughout the term of the lease that will, trigger something? Because I'm just wanting to know, obviously, if they're not operating or if they just fold, or how do we control some of those movements? I have a couple more questions, but I'll let you answer that one. Thank you.
Tina might be best placed to answer that question.
Thank you. Sorry for running late. So with regards to so you're talking about the incorporated with the deep water, yeah? So I think it's been a positive outcome with the group. One, because they are working closely with council. It is something that we've only just become aware of it. So they've been actively trying to get themselves up and running. So for the fact that they're doing their due diligence and making sure that, they're moving in the right direction with their club, and involving council with that, I think that's a really good outcome.
Yeah, I guess my question is any conditions in the lease that require them to notify us if there's any of these issues, or if there's something that will, I guess, stop them from being able to administer the activities there?
Yeah, so normally what would happen, so in this instance, we won't be entering into the lease until they show us the documentation that, what they've have to go through with Office Fair Trading has been dealt with. And it is something that, if this arises with any club, they should be coming forward to council and advising us of that. But in this instance, then I can assure you that we won't be entering into that until we get that documentation.
So again, is there conditions in the lease that note any, I guess, reporting requirements that, club needs to send to council so we know that everything's going okay, or?
Yes, correct, there is.
In addition to that, we are looking to change the way in which we manage our leases, and we will be undertaking annual reviews of our leases in the near future, and that will allow us the opportunity to be able to work with the different community groups to make sure that they do remain compliant with any obligations that they have. And we need to just bear in mind that these are community groups, and sometimes they need a little bit of extra support to be able to navigate all the requirements that they need to meet.
Yeah, thank you. I do understand that. It's not necessarily to punish anyone, it's just to make sure that we're able to support them through whatever issues they might have. So that's, I guess, the intent, my intent. So there's a couple of other questions here that I wanted to ask you. So the other option, the not recommended option, which is to put this situation to tender for other groups to register their interest. Have we had any groups approach us that we know of that might be wanting to take activities in these areas?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, well, that's great. And well, I think that's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mr. Chair. It's a fairly straight one. Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Tina. I agree. It will be welcome news. It'll be a great outcome. I'm trying to find it in the report as to the term of the tenure. So, is it in the report?
It is 10 years.
Okay, thank you for that.
When I said I support, that's option 2, of course. Before. In answer to in discussion with you, Councillor Muscat, regarding new lessors around that area, I think we should be doing everything we can to encourage those existing ones, because there's been a little bit of trouble now and then through the years, and now it seems to be settling down, and it's a great thing for the area if we can get all of these clubs and keep them up and running. Great.
Councillor Branthwaite.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor. Just before we go into the moving and seconding process, just trying to clarify something which I can't seem to see on there. I see lease A is going to be shared by two parties. Is that correct?
So lease A will be the Baffle Creek Community Inc. Lease B will be Baffle Creek Men's Shed, and lease C will be the Baffle Creek, the Deepwater Baffle Creek Riders Club.
Oh, okay, I'm sort of reading it, you got lease B vacant here, so, okay, so lease B is where the men's shed's going to go.
Yeah, correct. So why I've got it vacant there is when we have now resurveyed that area and created the 5 lease areas. So currently that is vacant. Part of the recommendation is to assign lease B to Baffle Creek Men's Shed.
So is there a common driveway through to access all these points?
So the common area, if you look at the I'm not sure what page it is with the scrolling down where it shows where lease A, B and C, D and E is, you'll see like a common area. So in that common area there is where there's going to be car parking. That's the access to take you to lease A as well as D, E, C and B. So currently that isn't the case. Where the 2 lease areas are now, they do have to actually go through a lease area to get to the second parcel, where when we've resurveyed it, we've created that common area there.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I didn't see that. Okay. Thank you so much. This is really good. Thank you.
Councillor Hanson, your red button's on.
That was a good question, Councillor Branthwaite. That access is very important through there. But I would like to move option 2, please.
I'd second that too.
Moved option 2 by Councillor Hanson, seconded Councillor Branthwaite. All in favour? It's carried unanimously.
Sorry, can we just confirm that that is the officer's recommendation that you're moving? There's just some extra regulatory requirements in that beyond option 2.
Yes. Are you moving the officer's recommendation, Councillor Hanson?
Yes, Mr Chair.
Yes, thank you. And you're seconding it, Councillor Branthwaite?
Correct.
And everyone's in favour of it unanimously? Correct. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item G/3.5, monthly financial report for the period ending 29 September 2020. And I'll hand over to our General Manager, Finance Governance and Risk, and Acting CEO, Mark.
Thanks, Councillor Trevor. This report is your monthly financial statements through essentially to the end of September, so almost a quarter of the way through the financial year. Take the report as read. Some of the highlights or areas of concern I'll just highlight out. One area we're looking at, and whilst they aren't big numbers, they add up. Our interest received from investments is actually quite low and is looking quite low compared to budget, and is of concern, and we're working through that. The rate that we are getting on our investments, not dissimilar to everyone else, is almost non-existent. So it is creating challenges. We have tried to look at alternative means of investment, but we are limited. So our returns there are actually quite poor. Rates, as you'll see, we're in and around 95%. That's been levied. Due date was actually yesterday, so we'll work through those. Your general purpose grant, that is actually whilst that's looking behind from a actual perspective, it's on track because you actually receive 50% of that upfront, and generally in the June previous. So in June this year, we'll actually receive, June 21, it is likely we'll receive 50% of that figure. So whilst it's on a fairly low percentage at the moment, it's expected that will be realised. Moving on to our expenditure, our total recurrent expenditure to date is on track and at 21.8%. The bit that is of concern, and whilst when you look at it, it looks fine, is our employee benefits, so 24.7%. our vacancy rate during COVID has continued to, there's a good news story, but there's a budgeting story associated with that. So we actually budget for around about a 7.5% vacancy rate. We're actually realising somewhere in the order of 4.5% at the moment. So the cumulative impact of that is putting some stress on that budget at the moment. So it is one that we will continue to monitor, and is so just pointing that out as a potential risk as we move forward through the year. Happy to take the balance of the report with respect to OPEX as read. The CapEx, our projection at the moment is that we are going to be slightly ahead of budget with respect to our forecast. You'll see whether, we're at the moment we're only at 14%, but certainly many of our contracts are let and are out there in the delivery phases at the moment. So certainly looking like we will achieve that our forecast at the moment, but certainly plenty of the year ahead, and certainly a lot of expenditure to occur. But happy to take questions.
Questions, councillors?
I just have one, Councillor Trevor. Just a clarification. I was looking at the report yesterday and going through the likes of the capital expenditure side of things. Seeing as the year progresses, we're getting more and more of our work covered. The strategy and transformation sector of that, the budget's obviously $12.8 million. What are some of the things involved with the strategy and
That's largely, essentially a transformation project, our big strategic project. So Phillip Street is obviously the major.
Oh, right, because I was wondering why it was so huge.
And certainly probably Carly, our GM for strategy and transformation, can add some more clarity if I don't cover it off on it. But certainly a number of our other planning projects and design projects from a strategic space also are budgeted in there.
They come under that,
yeah,
under that category. Thank you. I was just sort of...
Yeah. Councillors, I'll just add, I think it's less than $1 million on the smaller projects, and the rest is all Phillip Street.
Thank you, Carly.
Further questions? There being no further questions, we have a mover, Councillor Glenn Churchill, seconded Councillor Natalia Muscat. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is item G 3.6 PSA 144/17, Arboriculture Services Extension, and we'll hear from the General Manager of Operations, John.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor. This paper requests to extend the current contract with Treescape Australasia Pty Limited for 4 months. The purpose of the extension is to enable us to run a tender process which will occur for longer term provision of the services and run that in parallel with the extension.
Any questions, councillors? There being no questions.
Yeah,
we have a question.
Yeah, sorry.
Councillor Branthwaite.
Yeah, John, is it on track to have your tenders and everything covered off in 3 months? Like we might be looking at another 3 months for another extension? No? Shaking their heads.
Thanks, Councillor. We will be releasing the tender for this contract in the next couple of weeks.
Cool. Thank you.
Any further questions? There being no further questions, it's moved by Councillor Rick Hanson, seconded by Councillor Chris Cameron. All in favour? Carried unanimously. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item G/3.7 mulch fees and charges. And I'll hand over to the General Manager, Finance, Governance and Risk.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor. This item is looking at an amendment to your fees and charges to consider offering essentially a temporary change to your fees and charges for a period of 1 month with respect to our mulch. So the sale and loading of mulch, we currently charge a fee of that. Whilst we say that our mulch is free, we do charge a loading fee. We currently have a significant backlog, and there is obviously a risk in holding the volume of mulch on site, and so we've obviously had some fire risk realised at our Benarabi site, but we also had at our Gladstone site in particular, do have just as much waste, if not more. So this is a proposed change to our fees and charges to probably allow and hope to prompt the community to utilise some of that mulch at a free of charge. And I'll invite our GM operations, John, to add to that.
Yes, thanks, Mark. Just to reiterate what was just said, following the fire that went through the Benarabi area and it set fire to the mulch piles, we've gone and assessed the same risk at our waste transfer stations, and at Gladstone, the volume and the way it's stored presents some risk. It is difficult to move, and additional to that, some of the mulch is actually, deteriorated away to the point where it's become dirt. So we need to shift it. And the best way to shift that is to offer it up for a short period of time. We have had some interest from commercial entities that might want to take some as well. And by dropping those fees for a month gives us a window by which we can move it.
I think this is a great idea. I think it's a good way of shifting things around and getting some mulch on their gardens.
Councillor Natalia.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor. Thanks, John. And I just wanted to, I guess, recognise the work of your team during the fires. And as you pointed in some emails, we got Shane Anderson's and Ashley Perrin's efforts there. I wanted to ask you in relation to the management of the mulch. I think also is a great idea. But how are we going to manage this going, I guess, in the future? Because I guess this will continue to happen again. Once we stop, we can just give it all away, but then it will pile up again.
We do need to consider how we manage that into the future. At the moment, our priority is to shift the volume that's there. And we should look at other avenues, particularly commercial avenues, by which we can move the material. Including how we encourage people to mulch themselves, I suppose, at home. So we'll need to consider that in the future revisions of waste strategy.
Well, mulch has always been related to smart use of water as well. So talking about water in the last couple of weeks, I think we could probably do something there. But hopefully people will use all the mulch we have. Thank you.
Just a question, John, if we can't reduce the load of mulch down to an acceptable level, what do you do with it? Being that we're coming into a fire season, is the...
We'll go to an expression of interest for someone to move it.
Yep.
And I think that's concluded in the paper there in terms of the first step is to offer it up for free. If we don't move enough, we'll go to an EOI for someone to move it.
There's no other option, it's just removal, it can't be buried or...
It may be possible, but I don't have that answer on me at the moment.
Okay.
At the moment, we're trying to shift it.
Thanks.
I'm just going to, through the chair, echo the efforts of Shane Anderson and his team out there during the fires. Recognise that there was a wholehearted effort by the team out there, so congratulations.
Thank
Through you, John.
I'll be sure to pass that on. Thank you.
Any further questions, councillors? John, I just had a couple. In relation to the storage of mulch at other venues, have we checked that all of those other venues are safe other than the Gladstone transfer station?
Yes, we have checked other venues, and Gladstone is the one that presents the risk to us, mainly due to its location and the volume that we have here. You can imagine if that went the same way as Benarabi, the smoke across town would be significant.
And with spring coming alive and the clean-up that occurs in relation to spring cleans and preparation for cyclone season, which we're starting to heavily promote, is it likely that we're going to be able to manage this in the short term, or should we just have an open-ended come and take as much as you like type attitude to it until we until we abate the situation, given the risk to us from an environmental and other point of view, in that as much as we get out, we're probably going to continue to get back in as we heavily promote to our residents clean up. It's cyclone season in a few weeks' time. We're urging people to do that. Should we likewise heavily promote the need in the public interest and from a helping the Gladstone Regional Council point of view, come and collect as much mulch as you can until it's all gone.
Yeah, yes, we should. Keeping in mind that the mulch that's built up at Gladstone's taken probably a couple of seasons at least, I think. So if we can move it now, we'll have the space for this year. But certainly those longer term considerations on how we manage mulch in the future, we need to consider that.
So is it the case that we just trial it for a month, and if it doesn't work or we need to move more, we bring it back before council and extend the period?
Yes, because the risk will still be there.
Yeah. The questions, councillors. Moved by Councillor Hanson, seconded by Councillor Muscat. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. I'll move on. Thanks, John. I'll move on to councillors' reports. Any reports, councillors?
Mr. Chair, would you allow me the liberty to say a few words in relation to a major event Saturday night? I haven't had the chance to submit any written report, but I'd just like to, on behalf of the Gladstone Regional Council, make a few comments in relation to the 45th annual Rio Tinto Martin Hanson Memorial Art Awards, which I'm sure each and every one of us would have liked to have been able to attend. So, with your permission, say a few words, my colleagues. I suppose, well, it's the fact that we were compliant, and I suppose the precautionary steps were put in place in relation to COVID-19 and limited the invitees, but it was a great celebration, and I applaud the efforts of the Gladstone Regional Council Art Gallery and museum staff, and also the volunteers, in having to deal with the compliance requirements for COVID and to successfully deliver this annual prestige art event for the Gladstone region. So just a couple of quick comments was that whilst the precautionary steps here were put in place and it wasn't open to the general public, there was a live stream, and that live stream is readily available now on Council's platform, on our conversation platform. I suppose in my capacity as the MC for the evening, to again acknowledge the major sponsors, Rio Tinto Alcan, and also QAL, and all the sponsors, the Judge Sue Smith, and also, I mean, really, at the end of the day, the event doesn't occur without the significance of those who contributed their various artworks and entries. There was 183 artwork entries submitted. Not everybody can be a winner, but in our eyes, I would suggest that each and every one of those 183 were winners on the evening. Just a couple of other quick points is that whilst we're celebrating the annual event through the virtual world, there is still the opportunity. The exhibition of all entries will be on display until 5 p.m. Saturday, 30th of January next year, 2021, and that'll be a great year for all of us, we hope. So people still have the opportunity to be able to go and see that, or as I said there before, it's available on our platform with a virtual tour of the exhibition. The other point is reminding everyone that the QAL People's Choice, and whilst the Judge Sue Smith had the challenge to be able to make the final decisions on who were the overall winners, the people still have the opportunity to be able to select their choice, the People's Choice. So the voting kiosks are open until 5 p.m. on Thursday, the 26th of November. So I suppose my final comment, I suppose, to put on public record the Rio Tinto Martin Hanson Memorial Art Award of $15,000 was won by Marlies Oakley. The Pamela Whitlock Memorial Acquisition Award, sponsored by this council, and was wonderful on the evening that the council and the elected members were recognised overwhelmingly by the judge for their commitment to this acquisition prize that was awarded to Elena Cherylova, and the Pietro Groentu Wood Memorial Young Emerging Artist was sponsored by Multitrade, and it was won by a young local grade 12 student from Tullua High School, Katie Hovelroud. So, and there were, again, those list of award winners are all on our website, but thank you for the opportunity, and really more so thank you to the elected members for their continued support and this council's commitment to the arts.
Thank you, Councillor Glenn, for that most comprehensive report. It's wonderful, mate. Awesome. Councillor Branthwaite.
Yeah, just from us sitting, because it was COVID restricted, for us sitting at home watching a live feed, it was lovely to watch. I know that the council is involved with so many things, and the Ignite program, funding program that happened during the start of the year is actually, we're starting to see the fruits of all that labour. It's I was recently at the Gladstone Ski and Barefoot Club out at Lake Awonga, because they were recipients of the funding, which allowed them to pin together a whole heap of jetty systems that they'd purchased weren't able to do. So they were able to do that, and we sort of declared that open. And last weekend I was had the privilege of being MC or host for the Lake Awonga Adventure Race, the second year it's been running, and they too are recipients of the Ignite funding, and they had 106 competitors this year, and that will only grow. The likes of the Gladstone Area Water Board, Darren was there, and he seen how much people enjoyed it. So we've got no doubt we'll see that grow in the years to come. So watch the space. October the 23rd next year is the next race, and so people put your market in your calendar and become involved. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Darrell. Do we have any other reports from councillors? No, there being no further reports, we will move on to urgent business. Is there any urgent business, councillors? No urgent business, no notices of motion, no confidential items. Thank you, councillors, for your contribution today. Thank you, officers, for your support and guidance. Let the record be noted that the time is 10:28 a.m. and the meeting is closed. Thank you.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify. Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify. Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education.